Welcome back to the second part of our series on a 5-week adventure in Japan, utilizing the JR Rail Pass system. Our adventure allowed us to hit all 4 major islands of Japan: Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu, and Hokkaido. Today we'll focus on these outer islands, but we'll hit key spots on Honshu along the way. Last episode, we concluded with our ferry ride to Miyajima near Hiroshima. After returning to the mainland, we decided to take a long train trip all the way to the bottom of the island of Kyushu. We stayed in a hotel in the city of Oita along the way. This trip highlights the engineering wonder of the JR system, as the Shinkansen routes lead all the way from Hokkaido in the snowy north to subtropical Kagoshima in the south. This time, we took the Shinkansen from Hiroshima all the way down to Kyushu, but transferred to the Nippo main line in Kita Kyushu to take in the scenic seaside route along the eastern edge of the island. Southern Japan is far less densely populated than central Japan, and the wildness throughout the island is a key part of the history and culture. From Oita, we traveled south along the coast to Miyazaki, and our final destination, the seaside area of Aoshima. There, we walked to the namesake island, which houses a beautiful rainforest shrine dedicated to sea deities. Also close by is a lovely botanical garden with large greenhouses showcasing local flowers and tropical species. This part of Japan is so far south that the weather is far fairer than the rest of Japan, and without the need of a plane or ferry to Okinawa. Those who favor warmer weather will enjoy visiting anywhere south of Osaka, especially southern Kyushu, and along the sunny Seto Inland Sea. After the lovely seaside escape in Aoshima, we headed west to the southernmost city of the main island of Japan, Kagoshima. Famous for both the history of the city and the massive active volcano Sakurajima, Kagoshima was one of our favorite stops on the trip. Make sure to get a ferry to the volcano, although this is not covered by the JR Pass. The cheap price is well worth the excitement of getting close to this amazing site, along with free hot spring foot baths for after a long day exploring the city. The wildness of Kyushu is highlighted in Kagoshima, once known as the Satsuma Kingdom, who fought against the shoguns in the Edo period and assisted the emperor in beginning the Meiji period. At this point, our first 3-week pass was about to expire, and we had a choice to make: either go back to Tokyo for 2 weeks or buy another rail pass. The choice was simple. We went straight to a JR ticket office and purchased another 2-week pass. Our adventure was not over yet. There is still so much to see. As such, we left Kagoshima and began the trip back north through the Kyushu to the city of Fukuoka. As a break, we took a partial beach day at the end of the JR line in the Saitozaki part of the city, but soon departed for another stint on the Shinkansen to the important Honshu city of Himeji. Himeji Castle is the ultimate castle in Japan, with a storied history and has the finest construction. With a large, hilltop complex, first being built in the 14th century, the castle has survived wars and natural disasters, including World War II and huge earthquakes, for 700 years. As a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a Japanese national treasure, and the most visited castle in Japan, Himeji is a must-see piece of architecture. Next door is the tranquil Shikoku Garden, built in 1992 to commemorate 100 years as a city, and is also worth a visit. The next day, we headed south to the island of Shikoku, an island rarely frequented by Westerners, but full of natural beauty and pure Japanese culture. Shikoku is quite easy to travel in a few days by JR train, and we took a loop from Takamatsu to Kochi, then to Ozu, and then to Matsumoto, and finally returning to Honshu. The first main city you can reach from Honshu is Takamatsu. The Civic Center skyscraper near the train station offers extensive views across the region and towards Honshu, but the main attraction of the city is the Ritsurin Garden, which is often cited as the 4th best garden in Japan. I have an entire video covering the garden and the 3 other contenders for the greatest gardens in Japan, and is linked in the description. Next, we travel south through the beautiful interior of Shikoku to the city of Kochi. There are multiple history museums in the area, and the castle grounds offer grand vistas of the city. The next day, we lucked out and stumbled upon the stunning Yodo Line, that goes from Kochi to the neighboring prefecture Ehime to the west. Following the Shimanto River, often regarded as the last clear river in Japan, riders get some of the best train-based views anywhere in the world. Also, the small local trains are each unique, some based on the original bullet trains, others with model train cars showcased within. This day, slowly making our way to the town of Ozu was definitely a top 5 moment from our trip, and we highly recommend others to do the same. After passing the Shimanto River Valley, we took a quick layover exploring the small town of Uwajima while waiting for our train. First, there is a small temple with stunning views called Ryoko Inn close to the station if you can make it up all the stairs. From there, you can head over to the hilltop castle visible across the way. However, make sure you save enough time to make it back to the station though. Next, we took the train to the small town of Ozu, which packs well above its weight with activities. While a bit of a hike from the main Iu Ozu station, there is a town center with multiple blocks of historic storefronts, a small but elegant castle, and the Garrio Sanso Villa. This villa, made at the end of the 19th century, is a nobleman's abode that offers a look into what a high-class accommodation was prior to the influx of Western infrastructure techniques. Since there is a combined ticket with the castle, it is a no-brainer to visit these two locations in tandem. To end the day, we finally made it to the largest city in Shikoku, Matsuyama. This city is famous for the Dogo Onsen, whose facade is often cited as inspiration for the movie Spirited Away. In Matsuyama Castle, one of the 12 remaining castles of the Edo period. The mountainous city has numerous viewpoints, so spending a day exploring will be a workout, but exciting. The next day, we traveled back to the island of Honshu, crossing over the Great Seto Bridge, an 8.1 mile long series of suspension bridges spanning across the entire Seto Inland Sea. When in Japan, you will continually be amazed by the size and scale of various infrastructure projects, and the ease of traveling to and from Shikoku with just a rail pass is one key example. After a quick layover in Kyoto for a day as one of our favorite cities, we then decided to go to Ise Shrine for our next adventure. Please note that while JR trains reach the shrine area, a small fee will be necessary to pay since they utilize another train company's tracks. Ise Grand Shrine, or Ise Jingu, is the center of the traditional Japanese religion of Shinto. Split into an inner and outer shrine, these Japanese icons are famous for their rebuilding every 20 years. Most recently, this occurred in 2013 to a donation-based cost of approximately $550 million US. The shrine was established in 4 BC, according to traditional chronology, although Emperor Tenmu built the first buildings in the second half of the 7th century. As a shrine for one of the most important Shinto gods, Amaterasu, the location has been an important pilgrimage site for over 1,000 years, and now we have undertaken this pilgrimage as well. The grounds hold immense energy, with the dense forest and rivers a perfect location for spiritual reflection. As an essential part of Japanese history and culture, we highly recommend visiting Ise, perhaps after 2033 when the next renewal occurs. I will be making a deep dive video on the shrine to go into more detail soon, so stay tuned. Refreshed mentally and physically after our day in Ise, we decided to do a complicated train journey the next day. Our goal was to make it to the city of Kakegawa, with a stop on the coast at Bentenjima Seaside Park. After the 4-hour train ride to Bentenjima, we were met with a stiff 20-mile-per-hour breeze at a balmy 50 degrees, so it was not the best beach day. However, the city of Kakegawa turned out lovely, as the cherry blossoms had begun to bloom. In particular, the area around the castle, which was rebuilt in 1994, is lovely. As a Shinkansen stop only 2 hours from Tokyo, Kakegawa is well worth a visit, and is also renowned for tea production in the hilly region around the city. With Kakegawa visited, we were ready to head back to Tokyo, but this time just to switch Shinkansen to the JR East line towards Sendai. Don't forget to sit facing the views north when traveling on the Shinkansen from Kyoto towards Tokyo for amazing Mount Fuji views. Sendai is the largest city on the island of Honshu north of Tokyo. From there, we visited the famous coastal area Matsushima. Matsushima, name meaning Pine Islands, is a group of over 200 pine-covered islands in a small bay. Miyajima is known as one of Japan's 3 most scenic places, or Nihon Senkai, along with Miyajima we had visited earlier. After a 30-minute train ride from Sendai, the area around downtown Matsushima is very walkable, and you can cross bridges to multiple islands. We highly recommend a visit, although be careful in winter as the weather is quite volatile and blistery. The cold didn't stop us though, so we continued our journey northward the next day. This time, we stopped by the small town of Hiraizumi to see the incredible Sanji Temple. This temple is famous for containing a golden hall, which is housed within another building to keep it protected from the elements. Imagine Kinkakuji in Kyoto, but on a whole nother scale of amazement. Nearly 100% of the structure is covered in gold leaf or other precious elements, and viewing it holds divine weight. Photos are not allowed, so you must visit it for yourself. As one of our favorite temples we saw across Japan, it is a necessary stop in our eyes, even though Hiraizumi is just a few hours north of Tokyo. I have an entire video on the temple complex, which is linked in the description. The area also has other Buddhist sites of note, including a cliffside temple and a Pure Land garden. However, we are running out of time on our rail pass at this point, and so our journey north continued. You may be noticing that our daily travel times are increasing at this point, both due to tiredness and the low density of activities in northern Japan, although sitting in Japanese trains is elegant and relaxing, so train days were a welcome break. Hiraizumi was our last outdoor adventure day, as we spent the latter half of our 2-week pass traveling only by train, until arriving back in Tokyo. To this point, our next stop was the frigid northern island of Hokkaido. With a relatively new tunnel on the Shinkansen line from Tokyo, it is quite easy to reach this northern island. Importantly, the first main city you reach is the city of Hakodate. Hakodate is full of history, including European settlement, trade, and fortification. Known now for its fisheries and Western architectures throughout the city, it is well worth a stop. However, when we were there, it was about 30 degrees out, so we decided to take another dedicated train journey day. We decided to take a scenic route north across the island, which turned out to be magical. The Hakodate Line, which passes through the interior of the island and past the famous ski resort town of Niseko, was a winter wonderland. We then passed through the major city of Sapporo, but did not stay long. That night, we stayed in the small city of Asahikawa in order to catch an early train the next day to the northern tip of Japan and the town of Wakkanai. This train journey was also wonderful, with charming views and sunshine the entire trip. Unfortunately, we were unable to view Russia that day while waiting for the train back, but it was worth a try. Perhaps you can try it, but summer is an easier time to do so. Thus, our adventure to the outer reaches of Japan by JR Pass was complete. On the way back, we took a mix of Shinkansen and local trains through scenic regions, and it took 2 full days to make it back to Tokyo. However, by this point, we were fully recharged for our last few days without a rail pass in Tokyo prior to our flight out of the country. We were looking forward to another 2 months in Europe, so we were thankful for the break. With that, we conclude the second part of this series and look forward to sharing our concluding remarks and a summary of travel in the last video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.